I might have just made the most useful MOGRT of all time. It is the 2026 update of my smooth motion MOGRT, aka the Ken Burns effect MOGRT. Of all the premium MOGRTs that I've made, this is my best selling one. Not only can it do the basic effect really well, but it can do more advanced things super easily, super quickly, all without keyframes. It's not a template that you'll use once and discard. It's one that actually works in so many different situations. Any situation where you would have a Ken Burns effect, this can be super useful. And with this 2026 update, I have rebuilt this MOGRT from scratch, solving all the biggest issues that I've had working with the prior version over the years and innovating some new ones along the way. So here's what I've come up with. So let's do kind of a live demo here. If you've never used a MOGRT, it's all in the graphics templates panel. I've already loaded it here, but you would click this plus sign, find wherever it is on your computer, and click open, overwrite, whatever. I've already imported it, but it'll pop up here, and then it's just a simple drag and drop. So I will just do that. I want you to notice I've got a 9:16 sequence here. I'm gonna drag and drop the MOGRT in, and I'm going to keep existing settings. So the MOGRT was designed as a square, and you can see in the preview it's a square. The composition in After Effects in which I designed this MOGRT is 1920 by 1920. So it takes the maximum length of the height of a vertical video and also the width of a horizontal video. That means you can use it for either one. And I'll zoom out a little bit on this program monitor window here. Our program monitor, the actual frame of our video only goes to there, but the MOGRT itself continues on the left and right. And if we switched our sequence settings, if we switched our sequence over to horizontal, it's the same thing. That means this one MOGRT can work for all the most common sequence sizes. We don't need to have a MOGRT for vertical, a MOGRT for horizontal, a MOGRT for 4x5, a MOGRT for 1x1. This one can handle all those situations because it was designed square in the first place. Okay, I'm gonna go back to vertical just because I feel like it. All right, we're in vertical now. So I'm gonna drop a picture in. Let's find ourselves a fresh picture. I use pixels for this kind of thing. Person, I'm gonna search for a person. Any good persons we like here? Ooh, the beard guy. Maybe we'll do the beard guy. V for Vendetta Man, ooh. Coffee Man. How about Coffee Man? All right, Coffee Man, you're up. Just gonna warp ahead, importing this into Premiere. So just like the previous template, it is a simple drag and drop. So you take your media and just drop it into this media section here, and there we go. So without doing anything, we drop it in and let's push play. We've got a Ken Burns effect. Automatically, we didn't have to do anything. We are just slow zooming. What makes this cool is, of course, there are no keyframes. The other thing that makes this cool is, say, we wanted to zoom in a little slower. That's a little too fast for our tastes. Two ways to do that. One, you can take this zoom percentage and just drop it down. So we'll drop it down to 25. We were at 50 by default. And now it zooms in 25. So what does that mean? 50 is where we started. That's a 50% zoom over the course of our clip. So we just dropped it down to a 25% zoom. So over the course of this 10-second clip, it's going to zoom in 25%. But I'm going to put it back to 50 for the sake of example. The other cool way to slow this down, and even easier and more intuitive, is to simply extend out the clip. This is why this template is so good. You know, we can make this really long if we want. Let's pull it out to about 30 seconds. And play, and now look how much slower we're zooming. We didn't have to move any keyframes, we didn't have to tinker with stuff. I didn't even need to look at the program monitor. I could have closed this completely and just dealt with this as a clip, as a smart clip on the timeline, a dynamic MOGRT that is calculating everything it needs to calculate under the hood, so you don't need to touch keyframes. That is the real magic of this template. That's why it's so good and so useful. This also works going the other way. So we just pulled it out to about 30 seconds. I'm gonna drop it down to, what is that, 2 seconds. So now in 2 seconds, we get that same 50% zoom. So it works to speed up the animation or slow it down, all depending on how much you drag the clip out. To do this manually, any one of these tweaks would require you to change values on multiple keyframes. It is bad. So this is good. Motion duration. So like I said, from the beginning to the end, we're getting that 50% zoom from beginning to end. If we change this, let's put this at 50. Motion duration this is now the duration of that 50% zoom in will cover only 50% of this clip now. So in other words, it'll get through that 50% zoom and finish that zoom halfway through the clip. Does that make sense? It should, and I'll just scrub through here to show you. There you go, it stopped. And here we are, we're still kind of scrubbing through the second back half of the clip, but we've already finished the animation because it finished at 5. If we made this 25, so now 25% through the clip, our animation will stop. Push play and stop. So we've still got 10 seconds left. The first 25% of it will have this motion. If we want to go back, now 100%, that means the motion is live, the animation is live throughout the entire duration of our clip. That's how it is by default. That might be how it's most useful. Easy ease intensity. This is a new feature. This is an awesome feature. So you'll notice that when we push play, it's just doing a linear zoom from our first frame to our last frame. Now 1 is linear. 1 is no easy ease. You know, if we're zooming in 100% over 10 seconds, that means every second is 10%. So it's a linear 1-to-1 scaling up. If I up the easy ease to 10, let's just max it out and I'll show you what that does. It does this absolutely silky smooth graph kind of movement effect. It's a smash zoom kind of effect. You can see how slowly it lands into that final position. Now, it looks like, to my eye, it looks like it stops right around there. It looks like it stops around 4 seconds. However, the motion duration is set to 100. So technically, the animation is still live for this final 6 seconds. All that tells you is how intense Easy Ease 10 is. It's not actually done animating here. It's just so smooth that it's like at 99.9, 99.91, 99.92, 99. You know what I mean? Like, it is still technically inching its way to 100%, which finally arrives here. It just shows you how smooth that graph function is. We can drop this down because 10 is quite extreme. We could just drop it down to 3 so you can see what that looks like. And yeah, that's a much more gentle gradation. And yeah, you can see that we are now still barely moving, and we kind of, yeah, it looks like it stops to our eye around 7, but yeah, like I said, technically it is still inching up to that 100% animation completion all the way until 10. We can change that by dropping the duration. So we want to isolate the motion to the first, let's say the first third of this clip. I'm going to put 33. That means a third of the way into our clip, this animation that we've set up will be completed. Let's play it and see what happens. So now, there we are. It's completely done around 3.5 seconds or so, 3 1/3 seconds. That's cool. And if you notice, we're starting to veer away from the Ken Burns effect. We're getting to a place where I wouldn't call this a Ken Burns effect, which leads me to another excellent feature of this MOGRT. This MOGRT essentially obsoletes another template I have that does smash zooms. That's right, this template can do smooth Ken Burns kind of zooms. It can also do smash zooms, and I've set it up to be perfect for both. If we want to go even further in this direction, let's drop the motion duration even lower. So 15%. 15% of the way through this clip, our animation is going to be done. And now you notice it's starting to blur a little bit. Interesting. What is that? Play. Easy Ease intensity 10. Let's go full gonzo with this. Look at that. And frame 1, look at the blur. It has motion blur. So we have motion blur built in, automatic, no setup required. It just starts happening. So yeah, I just imagine pairing that with, you know, a whoosh sound effect or something, and yeah, you have yourself a smash zoom template built into your Ken Burns template. Excited to put that feature into it. I'm gonna kind of reset these a little and bring them back to a more normal setup. So yeah, again, motion duration 100. We're now animating through the entire duration of the clip. Easy Ease 1, just a basic linear movement. Reverse motion is kind of self-explanatory. It just flips from zoom in to zoom out. So in one click, we're now animating from our zoomed in position to our zoomed out position. Pretty convenient. This saves you the trouble of manually reversing all your keyframes with a single checkbox. So we like that. Now I love this feature. If you're familiar with the previous smooth motion template I did, this is a major upgrade of the custom mode. I kind of had a very confusing sort of custom advanced mode in the previous iteration of this template that lets you choose, say, where on the frame you wanted to zoom in. By default, when you drop the template in, it center zooms. So you can see we're kind of zooming dead center. However, you can change that to be anywhere. And You don't have to do the keyframe trick of like setting the keyframe here, going to your last frame, setting the keyframe there. You do it all on the first frame, and I'm gonna show you that right now. So zoom target. The first option here, guide layer, you're gonna check that on. So that red circle, that's your target. That's where we're zooming in. We are zooming in dead center to that circle. Now I'm on the first frame of our animation, so the animation hasn't really started yet, which is where we wanna be to set this up. Zoom target, it's checked on, position. So let's say we want to zoom into his coffee. I'm going to drop this Y position parameter here, move the X1 over just a touch. Perfect. So that's now where our zoom target is. I'll leave the guide layer on just for example's sake. Go down here and push play. Let's see what we get. And now we're zooming into the coffee mug. This is the same as if you were doing this manually to change the anchor point of your image. So the whole zoom would orient around that new anchor point. And then when we're happy with that, say we want to switch that, maybe we want to zoom in on his head instead, his eyes, go back down here. Now we're zooming in onto his eyes. Let's turn the guide layer off. That's really just for our reference. And continue playing here, and you can see now we're zooming into the eyes. So it's a very simple way of just seeing exactly where you're zooming in and being able to adjust it on the fly. Okay, so that's cool. Now, foreground scale. By default, our foreground scale is 100%. That means it is designed to fit the frame in its entirety. However, we can drop that down. So you see I just dropped it down to about 50%, and automatically, we have a second rendering of this image in the background, pre-blurred and pre-parallaxed. As you can see, the zoom speed of the foreground frame is faster than the zoom speed of the background. In animation parlance, this is called parallax. It gives you a sense of depth. This is depth perception, essentially, in two-dimensional form. That's just a quick way to get that blurry background effect without really having to create the second background, add the Gaussian blur effect to the background, add the parallax keyframes to the background. It's all just baked in, looking good right out of the gate. There is also an option to position offset. So if you do drop the size down and want to move this thing around your frame, you can do that with these settings. But I don't want to do that. So I'll just zero those out and bring foreground down to 50 and show you drop shadow. So we've got a one-click drop shadow. That's easy. All the settings you would expect of drop shadow are available. It is curated to my taste. Just a subtle drop shadow that might be all you need, a one and done, one-click version. Continuing on, some background settings. We've got background scale, blur, and parallax. Scale is the same as the foreground scale, you can just change the general appearance, including making it disappear if you like. Dropping it to 0 would effectively make it disappear. We can change the effective scale of it. 100 is default, leave it there. Background blur, just how blurry is it? Do you want it to be a, no blur at all, just another copy of your image, or do you want it to be just more a texture, a pastiche of colors? Maybe you want to dial it all the way up to 100, your call, of course. Parallax, so 20 means the speed of the background animating moves at 20% of the speed of the foreground. You can change that. You can make that 70, and now it'll move a lot faster relative to the foreground. If you put it at 100, it'll move in complete parity with the foreground. They will move visually seeming like one object. And if you put it at 0, it won't move at all. So it'll be a static background. So all the options here, 20 default, because 20 just gives you that parallax look, but you can, of course, dial it up or down to taste. So that is it for this template. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below, or you can check out videowizard.io, where you can find more information and the official product page on Gumroad. Cool, thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.